When the Brazilians of African football first stepped onto the world stage at the World Cup, few people could have predicted that it would be the actual Brazilians of world football that would stand in their way of making it to a historic quarterfinal in Ghana's history and in the history of African football at large. Before making it to the 1/16th stage of the World Cup, which was staged in Germany in 2006, Ghana had scooped 6 points out of a possible 9, only losing to Italy in the first round of the group stages. This was a feat that was quite impressive from a team that were making their debut appearance in a World Cup. Among the 5 countries that qualified from Africa to represent the continent at the world stage, Ghana was the only team to make it out of their group into the 1/16th stage. And even though on the whole the team was playing very well, beating Brazil would have been a daunting task for any team, considering the world-class talents they had at their disposal. A team that was made up of Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, and Ricardo Kaká. But even though the Black Stars were debutants at the time, the formation they set up in was what made them unique. The 4-4-2 system. This was the setup they had used from the very first game, and even when other teams would have preferred to play a more defensive formation against Brazil, Ghana still played with this formation and never looked back. So what was so special about this 4-4-2 system that these debutants chose to stick with, even when they were faced with such a giant of a team in Brazil? You see, in the lead up to Ghana's qualification to the World Cup, the Black Stars had blended some of the best players in Ghana's local league. Notable amongst them were Daniel Quaye, a right back for Accra Hearts of Oak, Issa Ahmed, the formidable centre-back at the time for Kumasi Asante Kotoko, William Thiero, also of Kotoko, and Charles Taylor, one of the most exciting players the Ghanaian league has ever seen. What these local players excelled at was this 4-4-2 system, as it was the most used formation in the Ghanaian Premier League. Another thing to also consider is the fact that even with the players in the team who were plying their trade abroad, majority of them had made themselves well known in the Ghanaian league before going out into the world for greener pastures, which meant that this 4-4-2 system was well known to them. This formation involves having 2 lateral defenders, one on the left and another on the right, and 2 central defenders. And unlike the modern centre-back system of having a left and right centre-backs, the 4-4-2 system in those times did not really matter the stronger foot of the players involved. Hence, in the team that was selected for the Black Stars' first ever game at the World Cup, there were 2 right-footed centre-backs, John Mensah and Sami Osei-Kuffour, who at the time was playing for Bayern Munich in Germany. The lateral defenders were John Paintsil and Adokwe Papo. The 2 holding midfielders were Eric Addo and Michael Essien, one of the best holding midfielders in the world at the time. On the left was Sule Muntari, and though Laie Kingston couldn't make it to the World Cup due to a suspension he had playing in a CAF game, Ghana was well covered on the right by Stephen Appiah, the captain of the side. Up front, Ghana had a deadly pair in Matthew Amoah and Asamoah Gyan, who would later go on to score one of the quickest goals at the tournament in under 3 minutes of play. Italy needed a masterpiece from Andre Pirlo and an 83rd minute blunder from Sami Kuffour to beat Ghana by 2-0. But they did sweat for that win and had to switch their setup from a 4-4-2 themselves to a 4-5-1 to compensate the pressure they were having in midfield. Ghana's 4-4-2 involved the wingers pushing up high and wide when the team was in attack, and drawing back in to join the two holding midfielders when the ball was lost and the team would have to defend. It also involved switching to a 3-back system when in attack in order for the lateral defender to join the attack depending on the position of the ball. You'll also sometimes see the strikers interchanging positions a lot, which makes it very problematic for defenders. This was the system Ghana used throughout their maiden World Cup appearance until their eventual elimination by the Brazilians. But 4 years later, at the 2010 World Cup in South Africa, Ghana opted to play with a 4-2-3-1 formation, even though they had another striker on the field in Prince Tego. This, I think, was because of Asamoah Gyan. In the lead up to the World Cup in June 2010, Ghana played at the AFCON in January. A transitional team at the time, the coach had managed to incorporate a lot of the under-20 players that had won the under-20 World Cup in Egypt. Players like Samuel Inkum, Ajiman Bedu, and Andre Ayew were given first team duties, replacing the aging players who had been in the team for a while. But this integration posed two main issues for the Black Stars. One, the under-20 players needed a little more time to gel with their new teammates, and also, even though they were good players, experience-wise they were still lacking. The coach's decision then was to play Kwadwo Asamoah as number 10 in order to strengthen the midfield, but this resulted in Ghana's humbling defeat to their neighbours, La Côte d'Ivoire, a 3-1 margin which caused the coach to switch back to the 4-4-2 system the team was used to in the subsequent games. The Black Stars managed to make it all the way to the final with the famous one-goal project. Asamoah Gyan left in the hopes of the entire nation, and this young team proving to everyone that they have the guts to face the entire world. But this young team actually proved also that the Black Stars can be dynamic. The 2010 World Cup would always be memorable for Africans, not only because it was hosted here in Africa, but also because Ghana made this history by qualifying to the quarter-final for the first time in history, by showing dynamism in their play, switching from a 4-4-2 system to a 4-2-3-1 to suit the strength of a team that was still in transition.